The Dark Triad at work. How to identify a narcissist, Machiavellian, and psychopath in your office. One of the three most dangerous personality types in existence is sitting within 50 feet of you right now. Not maybe, not possibly, statistically. Research from the University of Notre Dame found that 1 in every 5 corporate leaders scores high enough on psychopathy measures to meet the clinical threshold. 1 in 5. Look around your office. Count 5 people. One of them. And you have been blaming yourself for how they make you feel. That ends today. The Dark Triad is not a theory. It is a documented psychological framework that describes 3 distinct personality configurations that share a single core trait. They view other human beings as instruments, tools, resources to use and discard when the utility runs out. And they are disproportionately concentrated in positions of workplace power, because the same traits that make them dangerous make them extraordinarily effective at climbing organizational hierarchies. Here is why you need to understand this right now. Dark Triad personalities do not announce themselves. They do not arrive at the office twirling a mustache. They arrive charming, capable, and magnetic. They get promoted faster than you. They seem to know exactly what to say to exactly the right people. And the trail of psychologically damaged colleagues they leave behind gets explained away as the cost of working with high performers. You are not oversensitive. You are not difficult. You are experiencing the documented impact of a well-studied personality configuration. Here is each one in precise detail. The first is the narcissist. The workplace narcissist is the easiest of the 3 to identify initially because their need for admiration is obvious. They dominate meetings not to contribute, but to be seen contributing. They volunteer for high-visibility projects and disappear when the unglamorous work begins. They are exceptionally skilled at managing up and completely indifferent to managing across or down. But here is what most people miss about the workplace narcissist. Their cruelty is rarely dramatic, it is administrative. They forget to copy you on emails that affect your work. They present your ideas with subtle modifications, making the credit ambiguous. They give you feedback that is just specific enough to sound constructive and just vague enough to be impossible to act on. They create a professional environment where your confidence erodes so gradually that you do not notice until you are applying for jobs you would have considered beneath you 2 years ago. The behavioral signature that distinguishes narcissism from ordinary selfishness is the pattern of reactions to perceived criticism. A narcissist cannot receive feedback without experiencing it as an attack. Watch what happens when someone in your office is gently corrected in a group setting. The ones who smile and nod while their eyes go cold. The ones who bring it up 3 weeks later in a completely different context. The ones whose relationship with the person who corrected them is subtly but permanently different afterward. That is not sensitivity. That is the narcissistic injury response, and it tells you exactly who you are dealing with. The second is the Machiavellian. The Machiavellian is the most strategically dangerous of the 3 and the hardest to identify because they are the least emotionally reactive. Where the narcissist needs admiration and the psychopath craves stimulation, the Machiavellian wants only one thing: control of outcomes. They are patient in a way that feels almost inhuman. They will absorb a professional slight, file it away, and address it 18 months later in a context you will not connect to the original incident. They build alliances not because they value relationships, but because relationships are leverage. Every friendship they cultivate at work is an asset in a portfolio they are constantly managing. The specific behavioral signature of the Machiavellian is what researchers call strategic self-disclosure. They share personal information with you selectively and deliberately, not because they trust you, because shared vulnerability creates reciprocal disclosure, and your disclosures become information they hold. Think about the colleague who seemed to open up to you early in your relationship, who shared something personal that made you feel trusted, and who somehow always seems to know more about the internal dynamics of the organization than their position should allow. They did not get that information by accident. They engineered the conditions under which people willingly gave it to them. The third is the psychopath. The workplace psychopath is the most misunderstood of the 3 because the popular image of a psychopath is wrong. Most workplace psychopaths are not violent. They are not obviously dangerous. They are in the clinical description used by Dr. Robert Hare. whose research on psychopathy is foundational in the field, social predators who charm, manipulate, and ruthlessly plow their way through life, leaving a broad trail of broken hearts, shattered expectations, and empty wallets. In a workplace context, that trial looks like this. Projects that succeed while the psychopath is attached and collapse the moment they move on because no actual infrastructure was built, only the appearance of it. Colleagues who describe interactions with them as oddly unsettling without being able to explain why. A quality of attention in one-on-one interactions that feels intense and focused, but somehow leaves you feeling used rather than seen. The specific behavioral signature of the workplace psychopath is their relationship with consequences. Normal people modify their behavior in response to negative outcomes. Psychopaths do not. They keep making the same high-risk moves. They charm their way out of consequences so consistently that the organization develops an unofficial policy of managing around them rather than addressing them directly. Watch who in your organization has never been held accountable for anything despite a trail of failed initiatives and damaged colleagues. That immunity is not luck. It is a skill they have been practicing since childhood. Here is how to recognize which type you are dealing with right now. If your primary experience is confusion about your own professional competence despite evidence that you are good at your job, you are likely dealing with a narcissist. If your primary experience is the feeling that you are always 3 moves behind in a game whose rules you cannot quite identify, you are likely dealing with a Machiavellian. If your primary experience is a vague, persistent sense that something is fundamentally wrong with a specific person that you cannot articulate to anyone without sounding paranoid, you are likely dealing with a psychopath. Trust that feeling, it has a name now. Here are 3 concrete steps. Stop trying to reach them emotionally. Every attempt you make to appeal to their empathy, their fairness, their sense of collegial decency is information they are collecting about what matters to you, which they will use. Stop providing it. Interact transactionally. Complete your work, protect your output. Disengage from the relationship dynamic entirely. Make everything visible. Dark Triad personalities operate in ambiguity. They need the space between what was said and what was meant, between what was agreed and what was documented to do their most effective work. Remove that space. Confirm every verbal agreement in writing. Copy relevant parties on significant communications. Create a paper record that eliminates ambiguity. Build your exit before you need it, not because leaving is inevitable, because having options fundamentally changes your psychological position inside the environment. A person with options cannot be controlled by exit prevention. A person who cannot be controlled by exit prevention is significantly harder for a Dark Triad personality to use as an instrument. Build the option, then decide from a position of power rather than desperation. If this video is named something you have been carrying without words, the next video goes even deeper. I am going to show you exactly why the most dangerous person you will ever encounter will never raise their voice. Never show aggression. Never do anything a reasonable person in the room would call abuse. And why does that make them more dangerous than everything covered today? That video is in the playlist linked in the description. Watch the full series in order. Each video builds on the last. Click the next one now. Drop 1 word in the comments that describes the person in your workplace who just came to mind while you were watching this. 1 word. I read every single one.